All right. And we are on. Welcome. This is the coaching chat with Marina and Caroline.
I'm Marina Baranowski of the Coaching Marina.
And I am Caroline Day of Safe Data Change. Welcome to our page again. This is our second episode.
Yes.
And today we're going to talk about this really big topic, fear. How do you feel about that, Marina?
I'm afraid. No. I think this is a good topic to have because this is definitely something that is affecting most of us today in some form or fashion. So this is a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the things that comes to mind that you think that people are going through right now in terms of fear?
There's a few things. Obviously, there's the world of the fear, and then there's an individual fears. There's definitely a broad spectrum, and we tend to breathe in the collective fears sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of fears going on right now.
Definitely.
We're in the US, so the government shutdown is bringing a lot of fear to the individuals, to workers. We have so many fears going on right now. There are a lot of layoffs going on in different industries, the technology industry, the pharmaceutical biotech industry. So people are afraid. They're afraid of,
Definitely.
getting laid off, not knowing what's going to be next for their lives. With the progression of AI, people are afraid to be replaced at work. They're afraid that their businesses are going to become obsolete. And so there's definitely a lot of fear going on. So I think it's definitely a hot topic to address. And I think as coaches from the Jay Shetty Certification School, it's something that we talk about it with our clients. My business is really to help women overcome fear paralysis, but I know Marina helps, our Gen Z, and
Gen X.
that's correct,
Yeah,
Gen
we're
X.
we're
Yeah,
a little
you're the Gen.
older. But
Yeah.
the thing is when it comes to our generation, we don't allow ourselves to feel those things. Have
Mm.
been programmed and trained to either ignore them or minimize them enough to and not being able to process those things. So fear is definitely something very different for this age group for sure.
Oh, wow. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why do you think that is?
Our programming, everything starts from programming. So when we are children, certain things are said to us, certain things are brought to us. If we are a child and we're afraid of something and we go to our parents and our parents tell us that it's nothing, we push it off, because we're believing what our elder is saying to us.
Mhm.
So if you do that enough and your fears are not being addressed, you put them aside mostly. You don't allow them, you don't embody them, you don't, but it's still affecting you on a body level. It's affecting you mentally in the subconscious, but you try not to feel those things.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think Gen X specifically was a generation where they didn't address they didn't address any sort of feelings,
Yeah,
good or bad, really, but
true.
mostly bad.
Very true. Yeah.
They didn't talk about feelings at all. And so it was a generation that, you really learned to suppress
Yeah.
those feelings. And like you said, when, the children of that generation were listening to things like, stop acting like this, it's nothing, then you learn to suppress your feelings and you start believing that how you're reacting is wrong, that
Right.
you shouldn't be reacting because your parents or your family members are saying you shouldn't be reacting like this. And then all of a sudden you think that there's something wrong with you because you are feeling those feelings, but apparently you're not supposed to be feeling them.
Right. So you put them away. Stuff it down and you don't allow yourself to process whatever emotion that you're feeling. And fear just happens to be one of those emotions.
Yeah. I think, I'm a millennial, right? So I think also my generation felt a little bit of that. So we still had the parents that even if they did talk about I think my generation heard a little bit more from their parents. They kind of like they wanted to break the glass, if you will. So they started to challenge parents and ask questions where I think Gen X were more like submissive and wanted to listen to the parents and wanted to obey.
Yeah.
And our generation then came and said, like, but why? But why are we doing this? And they started to challenge a little bit more, so that gave a lot more room for the following generation to go, well, no, I have a voice too. Like, I want to feel too. And then also Gen X became parents and they started to go, well, that's how I was raised. Is that really how I want to raise the next generation? And the same thing for the millennials, right? Like I wasn't allowed to do X, Y, and Z. When I have a child, I kind of want to do that differently. I want to give them a voice. I want to ask them if they are allowed, if they want to do something or not. I want to give them preferences, which is again like a battle between the generations, right? Because one is like, you're giving them options. You don't give them options, just give them what they have to need,
Like, what are you doing? Yeah, this is definitely something that, as we became parents, most of us, didn't have an example of what we wanted to be as parents. So you kind of made it up as we went along. We didn't have a lot of help really with that. So, and at that time, I know for myself, I leaned on my family, my mother, the women in my family whenever I had an issue, and I would take their advice to heart without really processing and going, you know what, does that align with me? Does this resonate like as truth to me? I didn't have that ability to do that at the time, so you just went with it. Well, okay, well they're saying this, that obviously might be the right, because they're more right than I'm ever right.
So let's talk about that because I love what you said. You didn't have the ability to do so.
Right.
So when do you think you learned that you do have the
Is
ability to do?
Yeah, having always knowing that I wanted to do things differently, but not having enough courage to press forward with what it was that I wanted to do. And this is where the fear comes back in, which is fear of being told that I'm doing something wrong, being told that, you should have listened to me. That was a big one. You should have listened to me. If you did what I said, you wouldn't be in the place that you're in right now. And I was like, well, if I just listen to what it is that they're saying, then I'll be in a better place. Not necessarily what happened. So I feel like I had to grow up enough. And this doesn't have anything to do with age per se. This is, are you ready to say, I'm going to do that thing? I'm going to do the thing that no one else thinks that I should do. No one else thinks that it's smart or that it makes any sense. And try it. And
Mm.
once I tried that the first time, and I realized that I was okay. And that it was okay to do that. I made a decision for myself and I was okay afterwards. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
maybe I could do that again and again and again.
I love that. There are two things you said there. I think the first one, which was, the parents tell you, don't do this. See, I told you if you had, listen to me. The first thing that comes to mind is when I hurt myself with rollerblades. I went down a very steep street and I asked my dad, and I was 9 years old. And I asked my dad, Dad, I'm going to go down this really steep, and I'm talking about like the hills of San Francisco, but he wasn't here. It was in Brazil. And I said, I want to go down this hill on my rollerblades. And my dad was like, don't go. You're going to hurt yourself. Don't do it. And then he went inside the house, and I go, I'm going to do it. And then I went down, and I kid you not, I'm going so fast and I'm picking up speed as I go down this hill. And then as soon as it turns, there's a cul-de-sac. It's the end of the street. In my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to pick up speed, but as soon as I turn, I'm going to slow down on the street that it comes. There was no place to slow down. And I remember I had to jump, like one side was like a fence of a house, and I knew I was going to, because it was metal, I was going to get hurt. And then right in front of it was a river, and I didn't know where that was going. And so I couldn't jump on the river. And then on the other side was just a bunch of bushes. And so I ended up jumping on the bush to slow down. And I cut my stomach, I cut my arm, and I came home and my dad was like, I told you you should, but you don't listen. You should have listened to me. And I think at a very early age, there are things that you should be listening to your parents. And then you have evidence again and again that they're saying the right things.
Yeah,
However, we get that confused with all of our decisions
right.
because they were right. I want to say, even like because they were right 70% of the time, and you got confirmation that they were right along the way, when they're not right, then what? Right? Because they're humans too, right? They're
Absolutely.
not, they're only trying to do the best. They're trying to choose the best for you. They love you and they think they're going to give you an opinion based on how they feel, based on their past experiences, and based on
Exactly.
their knowledge, right? And so, because they think they have said, I told you, then all of a sudden now they're saying, you shouldn't be talking to anybody. You shouldn't be going to this place. Don't apply for this job. You don't have this skill. You know that. You probably need to go to school first. And so all of these other things become, but wait, he was right when this happened. He must be right when this other thing happens,
Right.
because we apply to everything. All of a sudden, they are right. Like I said, a lot of times they're right. But then we apply to every decision in our lives without really thinking, wait, does that make sense for me? Is it always the truth? And that's, I think, when, what do you think of
Yes.
that?
Yes. Is it the truth for you? Does it resonate with you? Does it sit with you and you go, yeah, that actually makes sense? How much of, and you tell me, growing up, how much of it was guidance from your parents and how much of it was your parents pushing a fear onto you that based on their past experiences? How much of it? Because I will tell you, I could run through like a million things that my mother's like, well, oh, this happened to me, and this is why I don't want you to do this. And you go, all right.
Yeah, tell me an example. What comes to mind?
Oh, goodness. I lived on a very busy road growing up. Um, it was a 4-lane road in front of my house. So this was like, and there was a stoplight in front of my house. And across the street from where I lived was a mall. So I would wake up every morning and look outside staring at like Macy's. This this is a
Oh,
very busy road in New
yeah.
York. And there was many times where, and again, this is my generation, which is you get up and you get out of the house as much as is possible. So you get on your bike and you ride around and stuff like that. And there was I guess the thought was that if I stayed within a certain parameter of, well, if you can only ride to this court, this street, and then that's that. You could only ride because this is the safe zone and this is her safe zone and this is what you abide by. And as a child, you go, well, what's beyond this? Like what's beyond this road? And you as a child will test things sometimes. I was not the kid to test. I
Mm.
was never the kid to test. It was always my brother, or it was always like a friend that always was like, let's go beyond here, or let's go to this road, or let's go to, and I felt like as a child, allowing me to make my own mistakes within a certain might have helped a little more for me. I know that
Mm,
you're trying to protect, but to be able to say, even if you do make a mistake, that the world's not going to come to an end. And I want you to learn from these experiences. I don't want you to fear experiences. If I was taught to not fear experiences, then I probably would have been one a very different person. But I feel like this is a really good chance when you're young to
mm,
allow this growth and allow the information. If I were to come to my mom and say, or my dad and say, I'm feeling fearful that, I don't want to get hurt, so I don't want to do this thing, or, I don't like the way that this person treated me, or this person, this, young kid said something to me once, and I went home to my mother, like, they're just jealous. Like these are certain things, instead of addressing the emotion that I'm feeling, it was just topped on the head a little bit of, well, you don't feel that way because that's not the reality of it. Scooch, see you later. Like there's no addressing, at least that's how I felt growing up. I'm not saying that everyone has had that experience, but when you're dealing with a child, child will have fears because it's not something that they've experienced yet. So that fear of the unknown generally, comes up as a child. And as a parent, guiding them instead of putting on that emotion based on their own experiences. Like, I got hurt riding a bike once and I have this big gash in my leg. And, so you need to be careful. There's a way to do this. And
yeah,
I
there,
don't know the right way to do it. I'm just saying like on an individual basis, but fear is a big thing that as a child I had and
mm.
wasn't addressed properly.
Let's talk about this perimeter that you
Yeah,
like,
okay.
because I think everybody had some, for me, it was the same. Actually, for me, I don't think that there was any perimeter. It was just like, don't go outside. You have a house
Oh,
with a backyard and a front yard.
yeah.
Don't get out of the house. And we have live-in nannies, well, a nanny at a time, but we grew up with nannies. So I had a live-in nanny since I was, from when I was born till I was 14. And so it was literally like you have enough space in the house and you have your two sisters. Don't leave the house. There was no perimeter outside. I didn't have a bike. And so we, the way that we did it, opposite of you, I was always the one pushing the boundary. I was always like, sure, yeah, no, I won't do it. And then the moment that my mom will leave the house to work and my dad will leave the house to work, we would just make sure that we were best friends with the nanny and that we would say, we're going to go out and then we're going to come back before they come home from work. And so for us, the perimeter was even smaller, but because he was so small, obviously we wanted a break, right? But the question I have for you is you did have this perimeter where you were allowed to explore with the bike, but only to certain thing. And you said, my friends were the ones that were going away, further away and exploring, but you stayed there because you were too afraid.
Yeah.
What was the thought that was coming to mind when you were like, no, I'm not going to do this
I didn't want to get in
because,
trouble. I
okay,
never wanted to get in trouble.
okay.
I
So the
it was
fear of
always
getting in trouble was higher
the
than the
fear of
fear
getting in trouble um overrode my want to experience the thing.
by your wonder. Yeah.
Okay. So like I think that had I pushed through some of that sometimes, I could have had and experienced things that my friends experienced because they did go and I would sit back,
Mm,
and now that I'm thinking about it, it is things that I've done along the way too. Like like first roller coaster. When my friends went on a roller coaster, I didn't go on that roller coaster because I was
mm,
too afraid of going. So it always stopped myself because my fear overwhelmed me. And they had a great time, and I missed out on a great time.
Mm, because you constricted yourself so much because at home you were so constricted that now you didn't know how to open that possibility.
Right.
Even when you were allowed, now you're at the playground or you're at the park, you are allowed to go and do it,
Yeah,
but now you have constricted yourself so much that it's hard to open the boundaries a little bit. Is that what I'm hearing?
you're absolutely hearing that. And that's because the constriction was so, and again, this is self-constriction. This isn't like someone telling me, and it followed through, um, into my 20s and into my 30s. The fear of breaking out of this constraint that I put on myself, breaking out and experiencing things that I found interesting. And a couple of fears would pop up. What would people think if I did that? What would people think if I, started, wearing crystals? Or what if would people think if I started talking about, things, mystical? Or what would people think? What would people think? What would people
Mhm.
think? And I allowed everyone else's opinion to push me in certain directions instead of breaking through the fear of who am I and what do I like, and allowing people to come to me.
Mhm.
And that was once I did that, once I was able to break free from that constraint that I was imposing on myself, I was finally able to take a breath and go, okay, now this is what I like. This is who I am, and I'm always learning because as you have more and more experiences and you're pushed through that initial layer of fear, and you just do. And in the
Mm.
doing, that's where the experiences come. And when you have those experiences, you can take wonderful things from it. You can take, oh, I'll never do that again from it. You can take it, but you're having those experiences as long as you're able to push through the fear of that initial fear.
That is true. Wow. And so when do you think that happened? I'll ask you again. Like, when do you
When
think that you went from I can do this and nothing happened to me. I'm actually okay. Was it because normally when people decide, especially if they're so constricted by their own boundaries, that when they decided it's normally something that happened that was really painful to them, then they go, you know what? This is actually causing me more harm now than if I explore. Then the opposite happens, right? Before you had this perimeter that you would have to bike around, but the fear of the consequences were higher than than anything else, and your wonder than your desire to go past. But then it gets into a time where it's the reverse. This is hurting me more,
right.
me being in this little place, than it is for me to try the unknown. I think the unknown will hurt less than this hurts just too much. When did that happen for you?
I felt very asleep for
Mm.
most of my life, 20s, 30s or so. And it was probably about like early 30s when I started doing my own questioning of around, just what's happening around me. And I know I discussed it in the last episode, which was like, I wanted happiness, like that kind of thing. So when I started to ask those questions and delve in deeper, um, I had to make the conscious decision to push forward. And when I started doing that, and as the things started to peel away, my marriage fell apart. The businesses that I was running was falling apart. Everything started to fall away in such a way to make room for this happiness that I wanted. That's when it began. So I would say probably early 30s was when I first started to feel things. And it has been a process ever since. I'm now 50, that it's been a very long process, but I'm finally able to address an emotion as it's here, as it arises, instead
Mhm.
of, sitting and throwing it in the back of my head and go, I'm not going to address this right now. So I would say, yeah, I would say early 30s was the beginning.
Wow. Wow. There's so much there. I feel like, thank you for sharing this, by the way,
You're
because I know that
welcome.
that's really deep, right? But what I almost heard, especially because we were talking about when we transition from being okay with the restrictions to breaking free from the restrictions, it's almost like I feel like because you said that you were asleep, you didn't notice that you wanted happiness. It's almost like happiness, I don't know if it's even available for me. You
Right,
didn't know. And then when you started to see the happiness, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's what I'm getting, right? Like as soon as you're like, I'm not happy, when you finally woke up and you were like, I'm not happy,
right,
that's when you're like, this restriction is not serving me. I'm actually sad. That's probably when you went, okay, I need to go find my happiness.
right. You're
Wow,
exactly
that's,
right. You picked up on that exactly. Did you have a moment like that?
I had the opposite, if you will, because, like I was happy to continue on, right? So when I moved to the US, when I moved to California, I was dead set on becoming an engineer, graduating, getting a job, and getting married, buying a house, live happily ever after, just like our beautiful stories in the movies, right?
Right,
And so I was actually happy. If you talk to people that knew me then, they would say, oh no, she was very successful, accomplished, and everything was happening for a reason. Because I really thought as soon as I get all of this, I'm going to feel successful and fulfilled. And so when I was doing it, I think I was already asleep, like you were talking to. It was almost like I was going through this path that I was taught, and I was really, really happy because I was like, that's the right path. And when I looked both ways, I was being applauded by it, you know? Oh, you graduated, congratulations. You got a job, congratulations. You bought a house, that's amazing. And those are, don't get me wrong, those are beautiful things to accomplish. Those are huge milestones. But I was almost doing it mostly, not all of it, but mostly because I had to. It's not a wrong thing to accomplish. It's beautiful to have your own house, like, but I was almost like, you have to. If somebody asked me, why are you doing this? I'll be like, because you have to. You have to get a job. You have to get a house. You have to be accomplished. It wasn't like, but why? Why do you have to? Does that make you happy?
did it make you happy?
It did. Like I said, it made me happy. I never asked those questions. And so when I got everything, even a child, right? Like it's a huge milestone to become a parent, right? And
Absolutely.
so I felt like that was everything, like I got everything. And then I'm like, why am I feeling not happy and not successful and unfulfilled? Did I do it right? It's almost like a blur because it's like, yes, I did the things that I wanted, but the reasons weren't fully there. So now I don't know. You know what I mean? It's weird. It's not a bad accomplishment. It's a great accomplishment, but it just felt that it wasn't 100% from the heart. It was what I was asked to do, not called to do. I never even considered, like anything differently. I don't know what it would be like if it was anything differently. And there was a lot of judgment growing up from anybody that had anything different.
Right.
You become a parent before you get a job. You become a parent before you get married. You don't go to college?
Wow.
And
You're
so
right.
everything else that I wasn't doing was completely judged. And so I felt like, yes, I'm doing it right. They're doing it wrong. You're not graduating. I'm getting a job. I'm getting a job. You don't have a family. I have a family. But it wasn't like, you know what I mean? I don't, if I would be lying if I tell you, like, I was happy all along the way. I'm so happy with all of my accomplishments. Don't get me wrong. But it just, the feeling behind it, I didn't have a why. The why was because you have to. Because if you don't, you're going to be judged. If you do it any other way, you're going to be heavily judged. Do you want to be judged? No. You want to be accepted and congratulated and applauded, and that's what you want to be. Anything other than that, you're going to suffer. And I
Oh,
watched.
you that resonates with me. That resonates. It really
Well,
does. And because the thing is like you said, you have I did it a bit backwards. I did the bought the house first. Then I had the kid first. And then I got married. And then so I did it backwards. And I always felt that people were judging me because I didn't do it in the right order. Even though I accomplished all the goals that I set to do, I just didn't do it in the right order, according to
the
whether
standards,
society
the
or family
culture,
or right culture or whatever it was. And when you stand back and you assess all of that, and like you said, that there's that piece that yes, you have all these beautiful accomplishments, but what was the piece that was missing?
my saying in it.
Yeah,
The piece that was missing was my saying in it.
yeah,
You know, I was all sad and upset because I didn't know who I was. I was just doing it because everybody, that's what you do. And
yeah,
I didn't know who I was. And I think the piece that was missing was me. Like, why are you doing it? Stop doing it in autopilot. You programmed yourself to be this like great accomplished achiever. I want you to stop and think about what you want to do. I don't want you to do it just because it's right, because somebody told you it's right. I want you to do it because you feel like it's the right thing. And then when I discovered that was actually very painful
yeah,
because I started to almost like not regretting, but I was started to look at other people's lives and stories, and I felt really bad for judging them. It just felt wrong,
yeah,
you know, to judge the families that are created differently than me, to judge, you know, the situations that were done differently than me. And then all of a sudden, I was resenting. That's the word. I was resenting even my actions. I was resenting my parents. And so I had to find help, you know, therapists and
mm,
coaches to help me guide and help me through that because I didn't want to resent anybody. I had to take responsibility.
right,
Even though you thought that they were telling you, it was still you doing it. It was your decision to do everything you did. They were looking out for you and they thought that that was the best decision for you. And look at you now. You did make great decisions, you know? So I stopped the resentment. But I think that was my cry for help. It was because I was resenting the fact that what I thought was happiness was never happiness. I was just trying to achieve, achieve, achieve
right,
without an intention. And so when I learned that, I went to therapy, right? And I learned that I was responsible for all of that. And what beautiful things came out of it.
yeah,
Even if it was unintentional, even if it was because somebody told you to, you still did it and that's beautiful. Now you get to do what you want. Now you can go and create your own rules. But even the idea of new rules would panic me because I was so used to being
yeah,
so square, whatever the person would call me. I was just very the systematic girl. Like I was just a rule follower. and I still am. My husband still says, no, you're still a follower. You don't jaywalk. I mean, come on. So I'm like doing things by a standard. And so now trying to break that, it was the same thing. The parameters that we were talking about, the parameter was so fixed in my brain that it was very hard for me to start breaking free from it and saying, it's okay.
Yeah.
If somebody judges, it's okay. Like you have to start doing your own thing.
Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. And I feel that we both, even though we may have went that different roads, we both ended up at a crossroad, right? That this is your crossroad moment where you've done all the things, you have your box, you have your parameter, you have your borders, and now you want to break free from those borders. Here's your crossroad. Where do you go next? And I remember standing at that crossroad and going, I'm afraid to take another step. Because if I take that step, then everything is going to change. My life as it is, even as uncomfortable as I am here, I know what this is. I don't know what this next thing is. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And it took me some time to finally go, take the step. I had to convince myself that if I took that step, that everything was going to be okay. That I could now take a look at every situation, every moment in the present, and take steps forward and make my assessment as we go. Not in a flashback of sorts. Now in the moment, I can go, okay, if I do this, this is what I'm going to gain from it. I'm going to take this step because I'm going to feel lighter. I'm going to get rid of all, the things in my house that no longer serve me, or, just a small little, and I'm talking about small little incremental steps. And those are my baby steps forward. Instead
Mm,
of surrounding myself with the same stuff, I said, I'm going to now step forward and I'm going to surround myself with different stuff. And if that new stuff came to me and it wasn't something that was aligned to me, I can get rid of that too. And it's okay. And so there's this crossroad that happened. And when that happened, making those little steps forward, um, I started growing. I started
mm,
growing mentally and emotionally. And it took me some time. I did also go to a therapist. And I also, again, read, but most of it was I needed to trust me and
mm,
not put trust in other people. And once I learned to put trust in myself, in my own judgment, and that gut, that is telling you, that intuition that's telling you that yes, this is safe, you can move forward, or you know what, this is a good idea, why don't you try that? Oh no, don't do that. Once you start listening to yourself instead of the people that are around you, um, you put yourself in a safe space to move
mm.
forward with those steps.
You said something so beautiful and profound about presence, which is the reason really why I have decided to choose fear, is because I have learned from the research by Dr. Joe Dispenza and some other coaches that now are talking about it profusely, is only in the present moment you can make a change
Right.
because the past is known. It's that comfortable place, the place where you don't even want to get out of. That's the past. And you can choose to live the same past, right? Continue to go with the same predictable results, or you can go in the present and only in the present make a decision to do something unknown.
Right.
You can't do it in the future. You can't do it in the past because it already happened. The only place of real change is in the present moment. And
Beautifully
you said,
said.
no, you said it. I'm
No, but
telling you,
beautiful
said it.
recap.
You gotta watch it again. It
Beautiful
was beautiful.
recap.
You said it so beautifully because you said, when I decided in the moment to make the change. And that's the only place where we can make a change is when we focus literally in this moment right now.
Yeah.
Let me choose something different, like right now, even if it's the small things, like you said. And then you choose something different, and it's uncomfortable because it's unknown. You don't know what the impact of that new thing will be. But when you do it and your body doesn't suffer, then you show your body that it's okay to do that unsafe, unknown thing, that it's not that bad, like you said it earlier, because it doesn't feel too scary. It feels scary when you're making the decision, but then after it happens, you're like, oh,
That
that
wasn't
wasn't
bad.
so bad.
Right. That wasn't so bad. I have an example. Maybe not necessarily for my own stuff, but it's as simple as this. One of my children, when we would go to the doctor, they would get that finger prick, to test. And my children would be so nervous about this happening that the entire ride to the doctor's office would be like this anxiety-ridden, like, this gonna hurt. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like all of and I go, okay, everyone, just let's take a breath for a second. You know what's gonna happen, or you have an idea what's gonna happen. We're gonna breathe through this, and it happens. We get in the car, and like, well, that wasn't that bad. Wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And that's and
Yeah.
that's the stuff. So even if it's a hard thing that you have to do, it's never as bad as what you're concocting in your brain. That's gonna
Most of the time. I won't say never, but most of the time it won't be as bad as you think it is. That's for sure, right?
Yeah,
And I think it's because the anticipation, right? We hurt ourselves by anticipating, based on this fear, how horrible something is going to happen. And that's
right.
not just a child, even an adult. I heard the other day like an example of when you go skiing. Somebody goes skiing for the first time. They don't know what to expect. They're completely neutral. And then you call your mom or somebody, right? And you say, oh, I'm going to go snowboarding. Snowboarding. I know people that have broken their clavicle, or, like they had to end up in the hospital because you go so fast, you can hurt yourself. I've heard horrible stories of people who have gone through surgeries and broke their leg, and then all of a sudden you're transferring and you're projecting that story and that fear into somebody's ears. And then they hang up and they go, I have a meeting on Monday. Maybe I shouldn't do this. That's really scary. People have died here. How are these people doing this? So you go from like not having any feeling towards it to being afraid of an anticipation of a story in the past that has nothing to do with you, by the way, but then now creates an emotion that is going to completely stop you.
Yeah.
And even if you don't, it's going to change you somehow, right? And we have to make a decision in that moment, like you said, right? In the moment, say, this was someone else's experience. This is not my experience. I love to hear that story. It's just not my story. I can make my own story and then go for it, right? But
That
it
is
happens.
but this is it. But because there's a lot of, I'm sure people who are out there and listening are struggling with the fear of doing the next thing, that next step. And even though it might be small or their goal is gigantic, they don't know what to do next. And this in the moment, day to day, small incremental steps, what is a mountain? If we reduce it down to a small little stone, just pick up one, address what it is that you need to address, whether it's something that you're fearful of. And again, that's today's topic, but like if you're fearful of something, address it, do something about it, and then
I
pick up
mean,
the next stone.
sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
that's okay.
I think before you even address it, some people don't even know that the fear is affecting them.
Yeah,
I think the very first step is really awareness.
I agree.
Am I aware of this fear? Because sometimes you say, like, I'm not going to go. you know, or let's go, we're all going to go skiing. I'm not going to go. I'm just not a sports person. Maybe you're not even literally aware that you're afraid of something. Maybe you're not aware that you are afraid of heights or that you're afraid of getting hurt. And you tell your friends, oh no, it's not that I'm scared. It's just, I just don't want to do it. I'm not a sports person. You know what I mean? It just looks very hard to do,
What
you
do you
know?
do?
And so
Chicken? It's like,
it's really hard, right,
you
for
don't
them.
want
And
to
I think
address it.
so you want to be aware of it.
So
And
how do you
once you,
become aware of it? How do you pull that out of yourself?
it's really questioning it. Why do I really not want to do it? What is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen if you do go? I think it's going to be too hard. What's the problem about being too hard?
Yeah.
You know, it's not that it's too hard, it's just that I feel like I'm going to get hurt. Eventually it's going to come out. If you keep on asking, but why?
But why?
Why is this a problem? Right? Why do you think you're going to get hurt? Oh, because it's really high. But what is it about height that you think is going to hurt? Because you're still on the flat the entire time, right? So there's always something that you're going to finally get. If you ask enough questions, you're going to get to the root of it all, right?
I love that tool. I do. I love that asking the deeper layers of the why. You're
Mhm.
asked the question, but why? And then they answer, and then, but why? And then eventually you get down to the end of it, the meat and the potato, as I like to call it. Like, what is it that's really here? And it's like, well,
Yeah,
I'm just afraid of getting hurt. Or if you get hurt, then what? Like, so if something happens, then what? Keep going. Keep
right.
going.
Yeah, what happens if you do get hurt?
What
Then
happens
what
if
is,
you do get hurt?
oh, I can go to the hospital. And then what will happen?
Right.
You know? And so, exactly. And then there's also the opposite, where you go to the core memory. People go, oh, no, because I don't want to. Why not? Oh, because I don't like heights. What is it about heights? I don't know. Like when I was young, my mom said, don't go on top of that hill. And I just never went to get anything heights anymore. And now you're like at the core belief. Maybe it has nothing to do with what you're doing anymore. It's because initially it was something that was said to you and you just never bothered to do anything different.
And that's where the work begins, because then you could start addressing really what the issue is.
Mhm.
I love
And
that so
like,
much.
I think it's because also like it's so hard for people to overcome fear because fear is in your body,
Yeah.
right? You told your body not to do it so many times. Now your body is petrified,
Yeah.
right? And so not only do you have to teach your brain, even when you teach your brain, your body is going, don't do it, don't go, because your body is already trained to be safe,
Yeah.
to be comfortable. And now you're putting your body in uncomfortable situations. So even if you're telling your brain, it's okay, I can do it, you're shaking because your body, so you have to train your brain and you have to train your body. You have to really convince all of it, your energy, you have to convince everything. You have to really change in more ways than one in order to overcome. But like you said, it always goes back to presence.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the present moment, you're not thinking of the past, what can happen, your past experience, your mom's past experience. When you're in the moment, that's when you're like, I can make this, I can do this and see what happens, regardless of what's happening. No matter what happens, that's when you really know you're doing something.
Yeah.
No matter the outcome, no matter what anybody's going to say, I'm going to do this. That's a huge step in people's life. That's when they
I
decide.
love that.
That's right. No matter what happens, no matter what I'm going to hear, no matter the outcome, no matter the time, I'm going to do it. It's going to happen.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a
So,
lot again, here, at the end of this, we have a little bit of time, but in people navigating today's world and everyone's very fearful. My takeaway from this whole thing is what you were just talking about, being present. In this present moment, what am I doing? What am I feeling? What does my body feel like? What does my mind feel like? And addressing that. Because what's going on around you, you might not be able to control, but the one thing that you do control is you and how you feel and how you react to the things that are around you. So if something is super fearful or stressful, take a breath, breathe. Do you know how many
Yeah.
people forget to breathe? I'm constantly reminding people to breathe. I'm like, take a breath. But
Yeah.
this is it. Be present in the moment. How do you regulate yourself?
Mm, absolutely. Yeah. And in the presence, you can actually kind of do that for yourself. And
Definitely.
that's where the redirection happens. I love that. So you're right. We talked about a lot about fears and our own fears. Let me ask you this question. If fear was not an obstacle for you, what would you be doing right now? Who would you be?
That's a rather large question. However, um, fear affects pretty much every decision that I make. And I have to be really aware, as we were talking about before, of when I'm feeling fearful. But let's just say fear was removed completely. I would be more outrageous, if you will. I would be more out there. I would be more intense. I would be more, it comes down to just me being me, you know.
Mm, that's beautiful. And what's the like completely authentic you? Like, give me like an identity.
Ooh.
What is she?
Um, I know that my age might be up there, but I definitely don't I definitely don't feel it. I would say my identity would be more like a cheerleader. You know, it
Mm,
would be an inspirer, a motivator. Um, yeah, I just think from a very authentic place. I love very deeply, and I have such concern and care for people and humans. And we are given a very, very short period of time to be on this earth. And if I can use the rest of the time that I have in this earth to provide some sort of peace and happiness to others, you know.
mm,
But yeah,
okay.
well,
So
really.
maybe our next topic should be time and age, because the two things that I heard right now was you said my age is up there. Is it? What does that mean?
From a chronological standpoint, being 15 over, um, carries a weight where you have to act a certain way, you have to be a certain way, you have to live a certain way. I don't do that at all. So I think that as you become more of the person that you authentically are and start releasing the things that you think that you need to be because of the constraints, like we were talking about, whether it be age, whether it be, maybe physical limitations, maybe it is, mental limitations. There's a lot of things that are keeping us from being a very authentic version of
Mm,
ourselves.
mhm,
And if we were to just be, I don't know, that statement runs through me. I look to be
mhm.
and exist in a way that is mine, and not everyone else's.
Yeah. What's one word? What's one adjective to describe this person that you are going to be without any constraint?
An adjective.
Hmm. Who is she?
Who is
Who is
she?
she? Who is she being? Because you said you just want to be her. You just want to be you.
Yeah.
So who is she? One adjective.
You can only describe me as me, Marina. That's it. There's no,
Yeah.
an adjective to add it. That's a really good question. I don't know if there is a specific adjective. There may be multiple ones. Maybe I'll think about that and I'll give you that answer next time. How about that?
Sounds good.
Do you have an adjective for you?
Oh, 100%.
Oh, tell me.
I think the fierce me, the word would probably be fierce.
Yes.
I think the her, like if it was completely like no fear attachment, no obstruction, it would be fierce. That would be the object, the adjective for it. It would be fearless, unstoppable, powerful, transformational. Like that is me, millionaire, entrepreneur, philanthropist. That's me, not anybody else, a servant, a lover. I think me without any fear is like a complete like donor, I just want to give. I want to give generously. If I had no fear, I would give generously, prosperously, and just give it what I have, give everything I have, that's
I love that so much. You are fierce. You're
I,
absolutely fierce, and living in this way and being able to, like you say, be a servant and give in such a way. I feel like we are so aligned on that level. This is why we do what we do, which is we just want to help and be and spread love and spread a beautiful message, and that you don't have to live in fear.
And fear is going to show up, right? So fear
Of
is a
course it
natural
will.
response, right? So when we say fierce, it doesn't mean that fear is completely gone.
No.
Fear is never going to be gone. I love fear. Fear is helping me, it's protecting me, it's preventing me from crashing, it's preventing me from burning, it's preventing me from opening the door to, I don't know. You know what I mean? So I have this intuition with fear that is protecting me at all times, but my body is also trying to protect me. I just need to learn the difference. Is this my body trying to stop me, or is this an actual fear? Is this an actual threat? And so when I'm not doing the things that I want to do, I need to ask myself, who is talking to me right now?
Yeah.
Is it my body? Is it my brain, my programmed brain? Who is doing the talking here? Why am I so afraid? And I have learned with other coaches to lean in. There is a coach that actually talks about that talks about leaning into the feeling and giving it a name and giving it a size and giving it a description. That happens a lot with therapists too. So therapists go, like if you were to identify the fear in your body, where would it be?
Yeah.
And then you say, I don't know, I feel it like in my throat. Okay, how big is this? And then you can say it's like a form of a ball, or it's a big orange square, or it's red and it's black. Then you give it a space. And then they go on to say, and this is again my experience, I'm not a therapist, but when I went to therapy, that's something that they work with, right? And then they say something in the lines of, okay, lean into this feeling, allow it to be there for a minute, embrace it, because it's trying to tell you something. It's trying to tell you that you were afraid because of something else. Find the core memory, find the core belief that is creating that fear in your body.
Yeah.
Just allow it to be
Teacher.
there.
It's a teacher. Fear is a teacher. And if you use it as such
Mhm.
and recognize it, and again, this is where awareness comes, you can look at it a very different way. And this is again taking fear from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And within that perspective, you can heal from some things that have stopped you from taking those steps from that crossroad, right? Like this is what and how, and you go, okay, it was only meant to protect me, and it's only meant so I don't get hurt, or it's only meant to, it's okay for me to take this step.
Yeah, that's the last part, right? Like
It's
it's
okay
there
to
for
take
a
this step.
reason. Thank it. Like, be grateful that it showed up in your life. Be grateful that you opened your eyes to something else that maybe you were overlooking.
Right.
And that's a beautiful thing. Um, Going back to, like how age carries weight, I'm going to tell you a story before we close out. It's really like, so my mom, when she was 40, she thought that it was such an old age, right? Like she's like, oh my gosh, now I'm 40, life's over, like prospects are over. Now it's the next generation. I'm done. Like, I'm too old for it, right? The same thing I see, honestly, and that's just, again, my opinion, is the 50-year-olds.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm surrounded by people your age and my age who on their internet are doing wonderful things, recreating themselves. I actually just met a coach who decided that she is going to teach women which types of different minerals and vitamins you're supposed to take after you're 50 or 55, I think she was. And it was amazing. Like she's reinventing her own career, her life, and so, yes, um, age will carry a lot of weight if you let it.
Sure.
It will carry a lot of weight. 50 is up there if you believe it's up there,
Yeah.
because 50 could literally mean midlife if you live to 100.
You're
Maybe you're a
absolutely right.
centenarian. You don't
You're absolutely
know.
right.
And
50
so,
seems to be a time, or at least within this between 40 and 50. There's a lot of things that happen from a physical level too. There's a lot of premenopause, menopause for some. And that does change the way that your brain starts to think,
mm,
move throughout the world. So you may wake up one day and go, nothing feels the same. And that may be the catalyst that causes you to become aware of the things that are around you. Age
mm,
does play a role, um, but I knew for myself that the older I had gotten, the more that I become, this is wisdom.
mm,
I'm using my experiences and my age as an asset, not
mm,
a deterrent for me to do things. Oh, I'm too old to do this, that, and the third. I'm not too old to do anything. You know,
mm.
if I want to do something, then I need to put in the work in order to do that thing, whatever it is. But age is definitely not a deterrent for me. It
Mm,
became the reason why I opened up my eyes and became
mm.
aware and awake. So that
That's beautiful. I love that because, like I was saying, like my mom was really terrified of 40. I don't know. I mean, I do know why, is because my grandmother used to talk about 40 like it was, and it was for my grandmother, 40 was, even the people looked different,
yeah.
uh, in the 60s when they were 40 than what they look now. You look at people
Oh yeah.
now and you're like, how is that possible? When you said your age, I was kind of a little hating on you because your face, like your skin is so perfect. And I'm like, it's anyways, I was like, how?
I
Um,
appreciate that.
so I don't know. I feel like when I heard my mom saying like horrible things about the 40s, and I love her, it has nothing to do with it's really what we grew up with, like, and but I remember like when I was like 12 and I was like, I don't want to think like that when I'm 40. And I remember even like when I turned 35 and my friends were like, oh, now we're in our 30s and everything starts to hurt. I would still go back and go, not me. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And so for me personally, I always felt like this is going to be completely the opposite for me. And that's just me, right? For me, because I heard something going on so badly about aging, I have chosen that for myself very early age that I was going to be completely rebellious about this like aging thing. For me is like no, like I want to make these decisions. But you're right. Like I know that in the 40s, heading to 50s, that body will change because that's just the way the nature of our bodies happen, but I do remember thinking when I get here, I don't want to have that feeling. I
Yeah,
want to start something new. I want to do something different
yeah.
because I want it to be different for me, you know?
It's your mother's, that was your mother's truth, you know, having 40 be her, like, it's over with, and that was just a mindset that either was given to her or that she came up with. And then when she tried to give it to you, that was like, that doesn't hit with me. That doesn't resonate with me. I have a little something different where all of my family on my mother's side, they lived to a very long age. Like my great grandfather died at 100. My grandmother's still alive. She's 95. So I really didn't have a like, once you hit this age, it's all over. Like for me, it was, I had to take a look at how I was feeling throughout the years. And as you always look at yourself in a rearview mirror. Sometimes I go, oh, if I wish I would have appreciated myself in the way I looked back then, but
Totally. Why
I
didn't you take
totally
more
would have
pictures?
appreciated that. But as I have gotten older, I appreciate how I am right now. And, I always look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, yeah, I want, to be this way or feel that way. But in the end, at my core, I am happy with myself because I'm being me. And this
Mm,
is small little steps. Even if it is okay, well, I'm gonna give up, having sugar, or I'm gonna give up, having something. Like, these are small steps I'm doing for me, not because it was, part of this constraint, that was put on me. And
mm.
living my life like that has been a game changer for me.
It's beautiful. Yeah, because we're overcoming a few of the fears that other people put on us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. Wasn't this so great? I
I
really
love
love you.
I love this so much, and I love you, and I love what we do together here. I really do.
I have a lot of respect for your story, and I love when we get to be so present and share, our stories together because
Uh,
you never know, right? Somebody might listen to it and take something from it, and this can be very insightful for some people. So
I
I'm
hope
so
so.
grateful for doing the coaching chats.
Love our coaching chat. Can't wait for the next one.
Yes, we'll see you next time.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.